Hey guys, enjoy the viewing. Volunteering for a cause always seemed like the right thing to do. That's what drew me and my friends to the Helping Hands Foundation. The organization was a local staple, known for their food drives, community events, and generous donors. It was my best friend Sam who first convinced me to join, insisting it would look great on my resume and give me purpose. But lately, that purpose has twisted into something darker. It starts on a crisp autumn evening, the air thick with the scent of fallen leaves. We're unloading canned goods from a van, our laughter echoing in the empty parking lot, when I spot it, an envelope. It's stuffed into the glove box of the van, overflowing with $100 bills. My heart pounds as I glance at Sam, who's too busy stacking boxes to notice. Why does a charity van carry thousands in cash? I can't shake the feeling that something's off. It gnaws at me until I finally bring it up during one of our late-night chats over greasy takeout. Sam listens, the glow from his phone illuminating the unease in his expression. "You're overthinking it," he tells me, but his voice wavers. 2 days later, we're both proven wrong. Our friend, Amy, who works in the foundation's finance office, shows up at my door pale and shaking. Her hands clutch a folder filled with photocopied documents. "They're laundering money," she whispers, her voice a desperate plea for understanding, "through offshore accounts and fake donors." My mind reels. This can't be true. But the facts are right there, and Amy's terror is too real. We agree to expose it, to go to the police. But before we can act, things spiral. The next morning, a sleek black car idles outside my apartment. 2 men in dark suits watch me from behind tinted windows. I duck inside, locking the door, but my phone buzzes almost immediately. A blocked number. The text reads, "We know what you're planning. Back off, or everyone you care about suffers." Panic rises. My hands tremble. Sam suggests we leave town just until things cool down, but it's too late. Anonymous donors, the ones we never questioned, begin making requests. They call in favors we're forced to comply with, like showing up at volunteer events that feel more like mafia meetings. The pressure mounts as if we're sinking into quicksand. One evening, Amy disappears. Her apartment is trashed, her phone abandoned on the kitchen counter, still ringing from missed calls. Sam and I stare at each other, fear hollowing out our courage. "It's a warning," he says, voice cracking. Then the police arrive at my door, claiming there's evidence that we are part of an organized crime ring. Documents signed in my name, papers I never saw, accuse me of wire fraud. The room spins and I struggle to breathe. We're being set up, trapped by a system we barely understand. As they lead me away, Sam's eyes lock onto mine. "We'll fix this," he mouths, though neither of us believes it anymore. The Helping Hands Foundation continues without a hitch, smiling faces at the next food drive, while I'm dragged into a nightmare with no exit. How did charity become a weapon? The question echoes, unanswered, as the world crumbles around me. I remind myself as I walk into the community center with my husband, Alan. The neighborhood disaster preparedness group meets here every Thursday, but today feels different. The air feels thick, and the cheerful posters about emergency exits and CPR training seem out of place. A man is locking the door from the inside, and my stomach knots. Our neighborhood has always prided itself on being close-knit. So, when the group started forming, Alan was enthusiastic. "What harm could it do to be prepared?" he'd said. And at first it had been harmless. We'd learned how to make emergency kits, secure our windows, and stock up on supplies. But over the months, the tone shifted. The meetings became more secretive, the leaders more intense. Tonight, Emma, the group's organizer, stands at the front. She's a thin, wiry woman with an unsettling smile. "We've made progress," she announces, her voice calm but commanding. "But there's more to be done." She gestures to a map of the town pinned to the wall. It's marked with red circles and lines, plans for barricades, escape routes. It looks like something a survivalist doomsday prepper might have drawn. Emma's gaze sweeps the room. I feel it settle on me, and I fight the urge to shrink back. "We must be ready for the event," she says, her voice tightening. There's no explanation of what the event is, just a silent understanding that everyone else seems to share. I glance at Alan, but he's nodding along, captivated. A chill runs down my spine. When did he start believing in this so completely? Later, as we head home, I can't keep quiet. "Alan, what's going on?" My voice trembles. He avoids my eyes. "It's nothing, just precautions," he says. But his tone is defensive, guarded. I drop it, but the unease sticks with me. The next day, I notice things. Little things. A neighbor's car parked outside our house, engine idling as if waiting. Emma walking by, her phone held up like she's taking photos. The way the neighborhood feels watched, each home under silent surveillance. And then the deliveries begin, crates of supplies, weapons. That night, I wake to a noise. Heavy footsteps outside our window. My heart thuds painfully as I slip out of bed, careful not to wake Alan. Peeking through the blinds, I see two men in black clothing, setting something up in our yard. It looks like a motion sensor, the kind used for surveillance. I back away from the window, pulse racing. They're not just preparing for a disaster. They're preparing for war. I confront Alan, my voice rising despite myself. "What have we gotten into?" His face is pale, his hands trembling as he grips my shoulders. "They know everything," he whispers. "Emma and the others. They're watching us all. You can't back out now." His fear infects me. The man I've loved for 10 years looks like a stranger. Days blur together, each one suffocating. I try to leave the house, but a neighbor intercepts me, asking where I'm going, why I'm in a hurry. The questions are friendly, but the eyes aren't. I am trapped. Alan hardly speaks anymore, just stares at his phone, waiting for instructions. When the next meeting comes, I'm terrified to go. But staying home isn't safe either. The group has transformed into something else entirely, a militia obsessed with control. When they distribute firearms for protection, I know we've crossed a line. I feel trapped in my own life. There's no way to reach the outside world without being watched, and the people I used to trust, neighbors, friends, are now strangers armed to the teeth. Emma catches me staring, her lips curving into a knowing smile. "Stay prepared," she whispers, her hand squeezing mine just a bit too tight. The message is clear. There's no escaping. As the days pass, I realize we're no longer preparing for a disaster. We're waiting for it. Or maybe we've already brought it upon ourselves. The weight of surveillance and paranoia closes in, and I know one thing for certain. Safety was never the goal. My laptop pings with a new message from my manager, and I can't help but flinch. I've been working this remote tech job for 3 months now, and the perks seemed perfect at first. Excellent pay, flexible hours, and the ability to work from home. But lately, it feels like my work isn't for a company at all. More like a machine, cold and unfeeling, demanding more and more from me. The message reads, urgent. Execute the attached script. No questions. My gut twists, but I've learned not to question instructions, even when they don't make sense. I click on the file, and lines of code flood my screen, commands that feel out of place, designed for something bigger. I try to ignore the growing discomfort, but the unease is becoming harder to dismiss. My laptop's camera flickers, just a brief flash of light, and then it's off. Sweat gathers at my temples. Did it just turn on by itself? I glance around my quiet apartment, the shadows from the streetlights outside pooling on the walls. Paranoia claws at me, whispering that someone's watching, listening. But I can't prove it. Not yet. The work assignments grow stranger. First, it was simple automation tasks. Now, I'm breaking into obscure databases, pulling confidential information. My conscience aches, but the pay and the subtle, unspoken threats keep me compliant. One evening, I receive an email from a client that's just coordinates and an encrypted message. My fingers hover over the keyboard. What am I involved in? I consider quitting, but then my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Think twice about leaving. We know where you live. The room feels colder, the walls tighter. I grip my phone, trying to steady my shaking hands. This was never just a job, I realize. They've known my address from day one. One night, my laptop wakes itself up at 3 a.m., the screen flashing as a hidden program runs lines of code I don't understand. My heart thuds as I watch. I grab the laptop and slam it shut, as if I could sever the connection, but I already feel exposed. The next day, a package arrives at my door. It's a sleek, new headset branded with the company's logo. The note reads, "Use this for all future communications. No exceptions." I put it on, and static crackles in my ears before a deep, unfamiliar voice speaks. "You've been a valuable asset, but now there are higher stakes. Your next assignment is critical. Failure will have consequences." I can barely breathe. Higher stakes? What have I been participating in? Desperate, I finally try to track the company down. I search through emails, metadata, anything that can give me a clue. What I find makes my stomach drop. Encrypted files suggesting connections to intelligence agencies and black market dealings. My heart pounds with every discovery. But before I can act, my laptop's screen goes black. Then a message appears. "Stop. Now." The walls close in, and I hear a noise outside my apartment. Footsteps. A shadow passes under the door. I scramble for my phone, but another text pings through. They're listening. "Cooperate, and you'll live to tell the story." Panic blinds me, but deep inside, I know the truth. I've dug too deep. They own me now. The newsroom buzzes with life as I stare at my screen, rereading the article I just published. The headline glares back at me. High-ranking officials implicated in corruption scandal. I should feel triumphant, but all I feel is a pit growing in my stomach. I know this story will rattle the city, and as the adrenaline wears off, unease creeps in. It only takes an hour for the threats to start. My phone vibrates on the desk with an anonymous call. I answer, my voice steadier than I feel. "Who is this?" The voice on the other end is deep, calm, and confident. "You think you've exposed the truth?" There's a chilling pause. "You've only exposed yourself. Good luck." The call ends before I can even process it. My palms sweat as I try to convince myself it's just a scare tactic. But when I look around, my colleagues seem to shrink away, whispering. Did they know something I didn't? That night, I step out of the building, clutching my bag tighter, the darkness pressing in on me. I can't shake the feeling that I'm being followed. I keep looking over my shoulder, but all I see are shadows cast by street lamps. When I finally get to my apartment, the door feels cold and heavy as I push it open. The air inside is wrong, too still, too silent. My laptop is open on the kitchen counter. I swear I didn't leave it that way. I approach slowly, every step echoing louder in my ears. An email has been sent from my account, addressed to an unknown contact. The subject line reads, "Confession of guilt." Attached are fake documents, photoshopped images, and fabricated correspondences implicating me in a bribery scheme. My breath catches. This isn't just a threat, it's a full-scale setup. Panic floods my veins. I call my editor, but she cuts me off before I can explain. "The police are here, asking for you," she says, her voice tight with disbelief. "What the hell did you get involved in?" I feel the ground give way beneath me. Seconds later, a pounding comes from my door. "Open up, NYPD." My mind races. I have nothing to hide, but the evidence they have says otherwise. I crack open the door, and 2 officers storm in. They barely give me a chance to speak, slapping cuffs on my wrists as they read my rights. I scream my innocence, but it's drowned out by my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The ride to the station is a blur. In the interrogation room, they slam down the evidence in front of me. Offshore accounts under my name, the damning emails. I stare at the printouts, my mouth dry. It's so perfectly constructed. Whoever did this knew exactly how to bury me. I plead with the detective. Check the digital trails. It's a setup. He looks bored, tapping his pen. We've seen this before. Journalists think they can't be touched. His skepticism is like a punch in the gut. My family won't answer my calls, and my friends are unreachable. My editor sends a curt message. "We've suspended you. Don't contact us again." I'm utterly alone, every support ripped away. As they shove me into a holding cell, a man in a suit watches from the shadows. I catch his eye, and he gives me a knowing, almost sympathetic nod. Later, a slip of paper is passed to me by another inmate. It simply reads, "Your source is one of them." Despair crashes over me. My anonymous tipster, the one who'd given me the details for the corruption story, was never my ally. They were part of the setup. The real scandal was never supposed to come to light. And now, I'm the one paying the price. The newsroom buzzes with life as I stare at my screen, rereading the article I just published. The headline glares back at me. High-ranking officials implicated in corruption scandal. I should feel triumphant, but all I feel is a pit growing in my stomach. I know this story will rattle the city, and as the adrenaline wears off, unease creeps in. It only takes an hour for the threats to start. My phone vibrates on the desk with an anonymous call. I answer, my voice steadier than I feel. "Who is this?" The voice on the other end is deep, calm, and confident. "You think you've exposed the truth." There's a chilling pause. "You've only exposed yourself. Good luck." The call ends before I can even process it. My palms sweat as I try to convince myself it's just a scare tactic. But when I look around, my colleagues seem to shrink away, whispering. Did they know something I didn't? That night, I step out of the building, clutching my bag tighter, the darkness pressing in on me. I can't shake the feeling that I'm being followed. I keep looking over my shoulder, but all I see are shadows cast by street lamps. When I finally get to my apartment, the door feels cold and heavy as I push it open. The air inside is wrong. Too still, too silent. My laptop is open on the kitchen counter. I swear I didn't leave it that way. I approach slowly, every step echoing louder in my ears. An email has been sent from my account, addressed to an unknown contact. The subject line reads, "Confession of guilt." Attached are fake documents, photoshopped images, and fabricated correspondences implicating me in a bribery scheme. My breath catches. This isn't just a threat, it's a full-scale setup. Panic floods my veins. I call my editor, but she cuts me off before I can explain. "The police are here, asking for you," she says, her voice tight with disbelief. What the hell did you get involved in? I feel the ground give way beneath me. Seconds later, a pounding comes from my door. "Open up, NYPD. My mind races. I have nothing to hide, but the evidence they have says otherwise. I crack open the door, and two officers storm in. They barely give me a chance to speak, slapping cuffs on my wrists as they read my rights. I scream my innocence, but it's drowned out by my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The ride to the station is a blur. In the interrogation room, they slam down the evidence in front of me. Offshore accounts under my name, the damning emails. I stare at the printouts, my mouth dry. It's so perfectly constructed. Whoever did this knew exactly how to bury me. I plead with the detective. Check the digital trails. It's a setup. He looks bored, tapping his pen. We've seen this before. Journalists think they can't be touched. His skepticism is like a punch in the gut. My family won't answer my calls, and my friends are unreachable. My editor sends a curt message. We've suspended you. Don't contact us again. I'm utterly alone, every support ripped away. As they shove me into a holding cell, a man in a suit watches from the shadows. I catch his eye, and he gives me a knowing, almost sympathetic nod. Later, a slip of paper is passed to me by another inmate. It simply reads, "Your source is one of them." Despair crashes over me. My anonymous tipster, the one who'd given me the details for the corruption story, was never my ally. They were part of the setup. The real scandal was never supposed to come to light. And now, I'm the one paying the price. And the kitchen is dimly lit by the glow of my laptop. My father's voice booms from the living room as he rehearses his latest speech. Words like freedom and justice punctuating the otherwise silent house. I've grown used to living in the shadow of his activism, a man whose convictions take up more space than any piece of furniture in our home. I'm 17, and the only thing I care about is surviving high school, not whatever cause Dad's championing next. But that changes the night I find a microphone taped under the desk in my room. The discovery makes my skin prickle. Who the hell would bug my room? I run downstairs, clutching the mic in my hand. "Dad." I interrupt his monologue, my voice sharper than I intend. "What is this?" He turns slowly, eyes narrowing. I expect denial, but he just sighs, like he's been carrying a weight for too long. "It's for your protection," he says. The explanation is both simple and absurd. My protection? From what? Before I can question him further, he grabs my shoulders. "You don't understand. They're watching us. They always have been." His grip tightens, and I see a flicker of fear in his eyes. It's a look I've never seen on my father before. That night, I can't sleep. Every noise in the house feels amplified. Every creak like a whisper of something sinister. The next day at school, my friends sense my unease, but I can't tell them what's wrong. Not even my best friend, Jamie, who's known me since we were kids. By the end of the week, Jamie calls me out. "You've been weird," she says, hands stuffed in her pockets as we sit on the bleachers after school. I'm about to dismiss her concerns when she pulls out her phone and shows me a photo. It's a picture of us, taken the day before, laughing by our lockers. But the angle is wrong. Too high, too distant, like it was taken by someone watching from afar. "I didn't take this," Jamie says. "It was sent to me. No number." Chills ripple down my spine. I tell her everything about the microphones, about my father's paranoia. We both agree to keep our eyes open, but the tension only grows from there. The next evening, I find a small camera hidden in my bedroom clock. My hands shake as I confront Dad again. He looks older than I remember, his shoulders slumped. "It's not just me they're after," he admits, his voice hollow. "They're after you too. Your leverage." I'm too stunned to speak. My friends' hangout spots, our jokes, our teenage dramas, none of it feels safe anymore. When I confide in Jamie and our small circle, We agree to search every place we've been. The park, the old diner, the empty lot where we skateboard. And we find them, microphones and cameras, all carefully hidden. It's not just our house that's wired. It's our lives. That night, Jamie texts me frantically, "Come over. Now." I race to her house, my mind running wild. When I get there, her parents are gone, and she's sitting in the dark, pale and trembling. She holds out a small black notebook she found taped under her bed. It's filled with detailed logs of our conversations, our movements, even our private thoughts. Someone has been documenting us for years. "We have to run," she whispers. I realize then that our small-town life, our ordinary worries about homework and prom, have been swallowed whole by something enormous. Something we'll never truly understand. Dad's voice echoes in my head. "They're after you too." When I moved into this quiet, picture-perfect neighborhood, it felt like the safest place in the world. Manicured lawns, kids playing hopscotch, and friendly waves from neighbors. Everything seemed ideal. That's why it made sense when Jeff, our block's self-proclaimed leader, started the neighborhood watch. To keep our community secure, he had said, flashing that smile that never quite reached his eyes. I attend my first meeting out of curiosity, expecting tips about locking windows and reporting suspicious activity. Instead, I find myself in Jeff's overly bright living room, surrounded by people I thought I knew. They sit in a perfect circle, eyes flickering between each other, sharing silent looks that make my skin crawl. Jeff begins by explaining the importance of vigilance, but there's something off about the way he says it, like it's more than just watching for break-ins. I want to leave, but something keeps me rooted to my seat. Maybe it's the way everyone nods in unison, or the way Jeff's wife, Marla, locks the door behind us. The casual mention of security cameras spreads a thin layer of unease over the room. I didn't know we had that many cameras, and I definitely didn't know they'd been installed on nearly every street corner without a single neighborhood-wide vote. As the meeting wraps up, Jeff approaches me, his smile frozen and mechanical. "We could use fresh eyes like yours," he says, clapping a hand on my shoulder. His grip lingers, and I force myself to smile back, my heart racing. He gives me a neighborhood watch schedule filled with shifts that stretch well into the early hours of the morning. It feels less like a schedule and more like an obligation. Back home, I try to brush off the feeling that something is deeply wrong. But when I wake up at 3 a.m., to a loud, metallic clank outside my window, the unease solidifies into fear. Peeking out through the blinds, I catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure moving between the houses. I expect it to be someone breaking in, but then I see it's Jeff, patrolling with a flashlight, checking locks on front doors. The way he lingers at each house sends a shiver down my spine. The next day, my neighbor Kim approaches me, whispering in a hushed, frantic voice. "Have you noticed the watch group? Acting strange?" Her eyes dart nervously, and she keeps looking over her shoulder. She explains how her husband refused to join the watch, and now their car's tires have mysteriously gone flat 3 times. Their security cameras? Disabled. Paranoia settles in as I notice how the neighborhood shifts. Jeff's crew seems to be watching not just for intruders but for dissenters. People like Kim's family or the retired couple who put up a no soliciting sign after refusing Jeff's security camera offer. Everyone starts stepping carefully, speaking quietly, like they're afraid of being overheard. One night, I try to skip my assigned patrol shift. I'm exhausted, my nerves frayed, but Jeff appears at my door like he's been waiting for an excuse. "We noticed you weren't out there," he says, his voice friendly but edged with something dangerous. My stomach knots, and I feel trapped like prey. I stammer out an apology, promising it won't happen again. I want to pack up and leave, but the paranoia follows me everywhere. Cameras watch my every move, and neighbors' eyes slide away when I try to meet their gaze. Then, one morning, Kim's house stands empty. Curtains drawn, no sign of life. When I ask around, no one remembers seeing them leave. Jeff just says, sometimes people aren't a good fit for our community. I don't believe him. The next meeting feels more like a tribunal than a neighborhood gathering. Jeff lists names of people who need watching. As he mentions mine, I feel a collective shift, eyes narrowing. The room suffocates me, and I realize there's no escaping this. It's not a neighborhood watch. It's a system, a trap, and the only way out is compliance. I nod, smile, and pray that I can fake loyalty long enough to find a way out before it's my turn to vanish. Professor Jacobs has always been a constant presence in my criminology lectures. His voice carries authority, a kind of quiet power that demands attention. So when he disappears without explanation 2 weeks before the end of the semester, it doesn't just raise eyebrows, it ignites whispers. The department claims he's on an unexpected sabbatical, but something about it doesn't sit right with me or the group I work with on our final project. Our assignment is to investigate a real cold case, a mystery from the city's archives that no one's been able to solve. It's supposed to be academic, a thought experiment. But with Professor Jacobs gone, the case takes on an eerie significance, like there are connections we can't yet see. My friend Alex is the first to suggest it. What if the professor's disappearance is related to the case? We all laugh at first, but the seed is planted, and it doesn't take long for our curiosity to become obsession. We begin to dig deeper, our late-night study sessions morphing into strategy meetings in dimly lit dorm rooms. The case we chose involves a missing person from the 1980s, a college student who vanished one October night and was never found. The parallels are too obvious to ignore. Professor Jacobs was last seen walking to his car in the exact same parking lot where the student disappeared decades ago. My pulse quickens with every discovery, and soon the library archives feel more like a crime scene than a place of research. We decide to go to his office one evening, armed with flashlights and flimsy courage. The janitor lets us in, saying he always thought Jacobs was a weird but decent guy. The office feels cold, unlived in. Papers are scattered across the desk, as if he left in a hurry. But there's one thing that draws our attention, a locked filing cabinet. Alex tries a handful of keys swiped from his internship at campus security. The lock clicks open, and we hold our breath as the drawer slides out. Inside, there's a thick folder marked with red ink. Do not remove. The tension in the room feels heavy enough to crush us. I flip it open, and my heart nearly stops. It's filled with old photos of the student who disappeared, her smiling face captured over and over, like an obsession. Beneath them are letters written in Jacob's handwriting, filled with desperate apologies, veiled confessions, and mentions of an unnamed shadow that's been following him. I feel the room spin, the weight of realization pressing on my chest. Was he involved? Or was he being hunted, just like she had been? Before we can process what we've found, the door creaks open. A shadow spills across the office floor, and I feel my breath catch. It's not security. A figure steps into the light, a man in a campus maintenance uniform. His expression is too calm, too knowing. He doesn't look surprised to find us. You shouldn't be here, he says, his voice unnervingly flat. Alex fumbles with the folder, trying to shove it back into the drawer, but it's too late. The man steps forward, blocking our way out. Some secrets, he continues, are better left buried. My mind races as the pieces fall into place. He's not just a janitor. He's connected, someone who's been watching, waiting. My legs feel frozen, but I force myself to move, elbowing Alex and whispering that we need to leave. We bolt past the man, our feet pounding down the hallway, but his footsteps echo behind us, relentless and too close. We burst out into the night, gasping for air. Alex clutches the folder, our only evidence. But now I know that this isn't just about a cold case or a missing professor. Someone powerful wants this buried, and they're willing to make us disappear too. The campus, once familiar and safe, now feels like a labyrinth of shadows closing in. The office lights buzz quietly above as I stare at my computer screen, trying to make sense of the files my coworker Jake and I have stumbled upon. We work at Novatech, a major player in tech innovation, but these documents weave, unearth, paint a different picture. The company we thought we knew is hiding something huge. Rows and rows of confidential blueprints, encrypted emails, and transactions linked to a foreign government. Jake shifts uneasily beside me, his hands trembling as he clicks through more evidence. "This has to be a mistake," he says, his voice low and uncertain. But the deeper we dig, the clearer the truth becomes. Novatech isn't just developing cutting-edge technology. It's feeding secrets to a foreign intelligence network. My stomach churns with the weight of it. We sit in stunned silence, the hum of the air conditioning suddenly feeling too loud. "We have to tell someone," Jake whispers. But before we can even discuss our options, my computer screen glitches. A message appears. "Your activity has been flagged. Remain at your desk." Panic floods through me. I turn to Jake, and he's already stuffing papers into his backpack. "We need to get out of here," he hisses, but before we can move, the elevator doors at the far end of the office open. Two men in suits step out, their expressions blank, almost robotic. They head straight for our desks. We scramble, adrenaline propelling us toward the emergency exit. The stairwell echoes with our hurried footsteps, but every sound feels like it's being broadcast to the entire building. Jake glances over his shoulder, his face pale. "They're coming," he whispers, and the words send a fresh wave of terror through me. We burst out onto the street, gulping down the cool evening air, but the feeling of being watched doesn't leave. The city lights blur as we weave through crowds, desperately trying to put distance between us and the building. We duck into a dimly lit cafe, breathing hard, and I realize we've only bought ourselves a few minutes. My phone buzzes in my pocket. It's a text from an unknown number. "You've seen too much." We're watching. The cafe's cozy atmosphere suddenly feels suffocating. Every person a potential threat. Jake's face is a mixture of fear and determination. "We need to go somewhere they can't track us," he says, but we both know there's nowhere truly safe. We try to get rid of our company-issued phones, but even that feels futile. It's not just our devices. Our entire lives have become compromised. We decide to reach out to a journalist Jake knows, someone who might help us leak the information safely. But when we arrive at her office, it's already too late. The receptionist informs us that she left town that morning. No explanation. "Maybe she knew," Jake murmurs, dread seeping into every word. Suddenly, a car idles to a stop across the street, and the two men from Novatech emerge, scanning the area. My pulse races, and I feel the world closing in around me. We duck into a nearby alley, the darkness swallowing us whole. "We can't keep running," I whisper, even though my whole body screams to keep moving. Jake's eyes meet mine, a flicker of hope buried under layers of fear. "Then we expose it all," he says. But the way he says it, the resigned finality, makes me realize that even if we do, we might not live to see the fallout. Somewhere in the distance, a phone rings, a sound so ordinary, yet it sends chills down my spine. We've crossed into a world where every step is monitored, where every choice feels like a trap. And as we make our way deeper into the city's shadows, I wonder if we'll ever break free, or if Novatech will always be one step ahead. The invitation arrives in a sleek black envelope, the address scrawled in bold letters across the front. My friends and I had heard rumors of these exclusive warehouse parties, whispered tales of the wildest nights you could imagine. We never expected to actually get invited. But here we are, squeezing into the back of Jamie's beat-up SUV, the anticipation buzzing in our veins. The warehouse is massive, tucked away in a deserted part of the city. Neon lights pulse through the cracks in the boarded-up windows, the bass of the music rattling the rusted metal walls. A bouncer waves us in, barely checking IDs, and we step inside to a world of flashing lights and pounding beats. The place is alive with energy, but something feels just a bit off. I'm the responsible one of our group, always keeping an eye on the exits, always making sure everyone gets home safe. As we push through the crowd, that nagging instinct kicks in. The exit signs are dim, almost deliberately hidden. I try to brush off the unease, telling myself it's just my anxiety flaring up, but my eyes keep darting to the fire escapes, all chained and padlocked. Jamie nudges me, her grin wide as she shouts over the music. "Come on, have some fun." I force a smile, but I can't shake the feeling that we're being funneled, trapped. The warehouse is a maze of bodies, and my friends get pulled deeper into the crowd, laughter swallowed by the deafening sound. I turn to grab a drink from one of the pop-up bars, but the bartender's eyes give me pause. They're cold, scanning the room with a detached efficiency. He doesn't look like he belongs here. I take a sip of my drink, but the sour taste of fear makes it hard to swallow. Then the lights flicker. Just a brief, stuttering blackout, but it feels like a warning. My phone buzzes in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. "Get out now." Ice runs through my veins. I glance around, searching for familiar faces, but everyone looks like a stranger. I spot Kyle, another friend, dancing near a makeshift DJ booth. I push my way toward him, shouting his name. He doesn't hear me at first, but then his smile drops when he sees my expression. "What's wrong?" he asks, his laughter fading. "I think we need to leave," I say, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. Kyle gives me a confused look, but he doesn't argue. As we head toward where I last saw Jamie, the music abruptly cuts out, replaced by a crackling announcement over the speakers. "Attention, everyone. The exits are temporarily closed. Please remain calm." A murmur runs through the crowd, but it doesn't take long for unease to turn into something uglier. People push, trying to get to the doors, but I already know they won't open. Jamie's face appears through the chaos, her eyes wide with fear. "What the hell is going on?" she asks, grabbing my arm. My mouth goes dry. "We're being set up," I whisper, and even as I say it, I don't fully understand what that means. But then, men in security uniforms move in, blocking paths, guiding the crowd in certain directions. It's controlled chaos, a carefully orchestrated trap. We try to stay together, but the crush of people makes it impossible. Kyle gets pulled away, shouting my name, and Jamie's grip on my arm slips. I stumble, gasping for air, and the world feels like it's caving in. I push forward, finding myself near a side door marked "Staff Only." I don't think. I just push it open and slip inside. The hallway is dark, lined with storage boxes and the scent of damp concrete. Footsteps echo behind me, and I duck into a shadowed corner. My heart pounds as two men walk past, their voices low and tense. "Make sure no one sees the vans until we're ready," one of them says. The other nods, and they move on, leaving a cold trail of dread in their wake. I have to find my friends. I have to warn them. But as I make my way through the shadows, I realize that getting out isn't just about escaping the warehouse. It's about escaping whatever horrific plan we've been dragged into. And it feels like every step is taking me deeper into a nightmare that's just beginning. Don't forget to subscribe. You are the best. Goodbye.